In this video, we're going to send the AJAX call using the data variable. So our data variable at the moment contains all the details that we need to process everything in the PHP file, okay, including the extra values like the departure, longitude, and so on. So before we go ahead, I'm just going to make a quick comment about the way we have written code here. So you might be wondering why we didn't run these functions simultaneously and then submitted the AJAX call right after. Okay, so the problem with that is if you are sending a request like this, then you wouldn't know what time exactly you would get the results of the request. Okay, in other words, you might fall in a situation where you send a request for the departure coordinates and another request for the destination coordinates, but the AJAX call has already been sent. So you wouldn't have any chance to add those values to the data variable before you send the AJAX call. Okay, so that's why we had to wait for the status here, okay, in whether the status was okay or not. We had to wait and then run our code. All right, so now what we've done, we have waited for the first request and we added the departure coordinates, okay, or if the status was not okay, we just moved to this function and we did the same thing. We had to wait for the status after the request, and then we run the code there, and now we are ready to submit the form using AJAX. So we're going to do it twice. So we're going to do it in both conditions or both cases. So in the first case, if the status is okay, we will get the destination coordinates and then we will submit the form. So we're going to call a function that we're going to call submit add trip request. Okay, so that's if the status is okay. If it's not okay, we will still submit it. Okay, the only difference is that we're going to have elements missing. Okay, so now we're going to need to define this function. So inside this function, we will just have an AJAX call. So just copy a previous AJAX call from another file. Let's get it from there, for example. Okay. So we are sending the AJAX call here to the add trips PHP file. So that's our URL. Okay. So the type is post. The data, let's call it, well, we already know the data. It's our data variable. Okay. So if the call is successful, we're gonna have a function to execute, and if it's not successful, then we're going to show an error message inside our error message, and the ID of that div was add trip message. Okay, I'm going to use the same AJAX error. So the PHP file is going to receive all our data, and if everything is okay, it's going to store the data in a new record in the car share trips table. If there is a problem, then it's going to return an error message. Okay, so our function is going to check if you've got anything inside that data. Okay, you can call that return data instead of data. Call it anything you like. So if return data, then we're going to place that error message inside our trip message. Otherwise, we are going to do a few things. So first of all, we're going to hide the module. Okay. And then we're going to reset our form because we might want to add another trip. We're going to see how we're going to do that later. Okay. And also, we will need to load the trips and show them on the page. Okay. And we're going to have the new trip appearing there as well. We're going to come back to this later. Okay. So let's save this for now. Now we're going to go to the PHP file.